All right, power's back on. The studio is a complete and utter mess, but the questions cannot wait. So let's get this video done. Let's see what we can do. If you want to get an answer to a question from either myself or Dylan, hit us up in the comments. I will say, pay attention to the Friday live stream as well. It's a great chance to get your questions answered in real time, as we do try to get all the comments there as well. Anyways, let's kick this off with question 1, which comes to us from DJ Tommy Keys. He says, I'm shopping small diaphragm pencil condenser mics. I watched your review of the AKG P170. The 19 dBA equivalent noise level is not very attractive. Actually, I've looked up specs for quite a number of affordable to mid-range priced pencil mics. I'm not impressed with any of them. I might as well use my MXL 990 at 20 dBA since it's pretty much a 991 in a different configuration. Got any suggestions? Well, Tommy, thanks for the question. Let me just say, I still support the P170 as a fantastic microphone, especially if you're in the market for a pencil mic and you don't have a ton of cash to drop. As for the self noise on the mic, yeah, it's a bit of a bummer, but specs like that don't necessarily mean the end of the world. And for sure, do not tell the whole story of performance. If you don't believe me, just look at the self noise on a U87AI. While the two aren't super relatable, producers have been getting great audio out of mics with high noise for some time. Now that said, if it is really a problem for you, you can step up to the SE8s, which are quite a bit more expensive, but at least you get that much lower self noise. That said though, if you're going that far, save up a few extra bucks and go for the Cadillac of pencil mics, the Neumann KM184. Other than that, if you want the performance of a pencil mic and you don't have the cash to spend, it does look like 19 dB is your fate. However, I will say, try it out before you decide against it. You might be surprised. Number 2, Saiku says, I have a question regarding the Shure SM57 and other EIN or RF interference. So I run my mic through a Mogami XLR cable into the Moto M4 audio interface, which should in theory yield a very quiet noise floor. You are correct. However, while the noise floor of the mic is fine in my opinion, I get a constant buzzing noise, which I thought getting the Mogami cable would solve. This noise goes away when I point the mic away from my PC. Hint the mic not moving the cable away from the electronics. First off, let me say that the cable you're using has no effect on noise level of your setup. Most cheap cables can and will protect well against RF. Now, both the Moto and the SM57 should combine for a very quiet recording experience. Now, if the cable isn't the culprit, and it pretty much isn't at this point, Mogami does cables well, but it shouldn't always get a pass. If you have this issue, you should always try multiple cables. Now, you've done that, but that's for the rest of the group. If it truly isn't the cable though, try other microphones. Does it make the same sound? If it does make the same sound, then you can assume it's the interface. If it's a problem with the microphone, it could be a couple things: a loose wire, a bad transformer, or you can actually cycle back to the RF at this point because the voice coil itself can be susceptible to RF. And that said, it's almost impossible for me to diagnose without actually being able to see the setup myself. But I will say, if you're pointing the microphone at an RF source and it's picking up RF, it's probably that voice coil, and you might want to work on the RF signal that's coming off that rather than replacing a perfectly good microphone. Now, I will link to this article from Shure down below just in case you need a bit of extra help. And number 3 comes from Unusual Audio, which I didn't have enough questions on last week's Q&A, so I hunted this down off my PA20 video. They ask, Omni, most underrated polar pattern. Thanks for that, Unusual Audio, and wow, that's actually food for thought there. For me, it's both underrated while at the same time being the most useless. Now, I can count on one hand the amount of times I've used it, though at the same time, innovating with polar patterns might be something I might be interested in exploring. Honestly, the reason I haven't used it as much is I don't find myself doing ambient audio often. And for everyone else watching, Omni really does shine when you're looking for super accurate ambient recording. That said, I don't find myself doing much of it outside of the studio. And with all that said, thinking of all the polar patterns, I think you might be right. Interesting. And finally, this one comes from my SEV7 video from Zerafael. Is the SEV7 recommended for long-term narrations in an untreated room? And you're probably not going to like the answer to this one. Honestly, no. There is no microphone that's recommended for that use. And really this comes down to, yes, certain microphones will reject reflections better than others. But if you're planning professional use of the microphone, the best thing I can suggest is prepare your space as if you're a professional. You wouldn't show up to a construction site to work without tools. You don't show up to a painting job without paintbrushes. And treating your room is the basic start to voice work. Now, if you plan on making money at this career, you need to invest in more than just a microphone. In fact, the microphone you choose will have much less impact on getting jobs than a treated space. Start investing now and grow later, especially for long-form narration. Start in a closet, a full closet, and work your way up from there. Thanks for the questions, guys. And again, if you want to see this series continue, keep them coming down below. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.